And so on to the story of the purebred dogs that arrived without their certification. Now, a bit of a preface here. Wendy, I was really intrigued when this case first came into my inbox because I've been there myself. I'm not a dog owner anymore, but when I was many years ago, on 2 previous occasions, I had pedigreed bulldogs, and I paid an eye-watering sum for them because, A, I wanted to know that it was a proper breeder, that the dog was being born and raised in decent conditions and well looked after, and B, I wanted some
healthy dog
promises about the health of the dog.
Yeah.
And the bulldogs in particular, you've got to be very careful. They're particular bloodlines that are known for aggression, etc. So we were really careful, and you get what you pay for. So on both occasions, I ate beans on toast for many, many months, but I had these lovely puppies come home who came with their CUSA pedigree certificate in hand. So that's the Kennel Union of South Africa, guaranteeing the bloodline, naming the dam and the sire, etc. So my ears really pricked up when I got this story from Terence, who contacted us to say, well, the puppy has arrived, but the papers haven't. And I wondered if we were dealing with a potential scam of somebody passing off pedigreed dogs that weren't pedigreed, pretending they were pedigreed. But it turns out that wasn't what was happening, Wendy.
It wasn't at all, and I've never had a case quite like this
one. Yeah.
So we're not going to name the breeder or even the name of the breed of dog involved, because that would very easily identify her for reasons which will soon become very obvious. So both Terence and another buyer, Derek of Durbanville, paid the Joburg-based breeder 12,000 Rand each for a fully certified pedigree puppy. They also paid another 1,650 Rand to fly those pups down to Cape Town. They landed a year and a day ago, the 25th of April 2022. They were 12 weeks old, and all good there. But try as they might, ever since, they haven't been able to get hold of that all-important registration certificate from the breeder. So as I say, I assumed, okay, she's paid the top, asked the top price for a CUSA registered puppy, which must come with the certificate, and but she hasn't actually gone. These
they're
dogs
not actually
are
registered.
They're
not bona fide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They will never be registered because they don't qualify. Because to me, why else would you withhold a certificate if there was one? Anyway, so while Terence and I were toing and froing on this issue, me trying to understand what the possible motive could be, if other than
scamming you to pay for a puppy
certificates
that wasn't
don't exist.
pedigree.
Terence got confirmation directly from CUSA that these pups were indeed registered, and that CUSA had sent the breeder the certificates via Postnet in January. I don't know why it took from April to January, but they exist. They exist.
Okay. Yeah, it does take some time.
Does
I
it?
think, yes. Now that I think about it, yes.
All right.
Yes, we did. Now that I said they didn't have papers in hand, they came a little bit after the puppies had been delivered. Now that I think about it,
I had went through this process such a long time ago.
Yeah.
15 years ago, the miniature schnauzer, and the certificate came with the wrong birth date.
Gosh.
And I know what the date was because she emailed me to say the pup's born, and I just got irritated. She wouldn't change it, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to breed with this dog, and just left it. But now that you mention it, it wasn't an immediate thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so I decided she hadn't answered my email asking her why she was withholding the certificate. And so I phoned yesterday her number, and her daughter answered. And she said that her mum had been diagnosed with early onset dementia some time ago. But 6 weeks ago, a former employee allegedly broke into her home, stole some stuff, and poisoned her 4 breeding dogs.
No.
So Terence had already said to me he was made aware that was her last litter, which
we now know
he
why.
Didn't know why, but yes. He last spoke to her, he says, mid-February. So this incident couldn't happen afterwards. And apparently she's now very distressed, very disoriented. But as a lot of listeners will understand, she has good days and bad days. And the daughter, who sounded really caring and she said
genuinely concerned.
Yes, she said I will. Hopefully, Mum will have a good day tomorrow. I'll get her logins for the computer and I'll ask her about the certificates. They're not electronic. They're actually, as I said, sent either door to door or door to Postnet office.
Yep.
So we just, I'm pretty sure I've got her direct number now. She said, please don't worry, Mum. And I'm hoping that that between her and I, the certificates will be found and sent on to those two
owners.
And
so there is an understandable, genuine reason behind the confusion here. And I mean, if she can't find them, Wendy, one assumes the kennel unions confirmed that those certificates were issued. One assumes one should be able to go to them and explain and get a reissue.
I did engage with CUSA, asking them before I actually realised. Find out what was going on, what possible motive there could be. Is this a common thing and whatever? So they haven't come back to me. I tried to do it by phone. They said, no, you must send an email, and then I didn't get an answer. So I'll keep on at that. But yes, quite an unusual case. But it was, I think, for us a good opportunity anyway to
just
share
dig a little bit here because okay, so just to clarify, so Terence and who was the other complainant? Their dogs, Terence and Derek's dogs are definitely properly registered representatives of this particular breed. Kennel Union has confirmed that. So if all else fails, they should be able to get those issued again. And we're going to leave it at that. We didn't think there was any sense in naming the breeder given the circumstances.
But we promoted this thing, so I think we had to explain what happened there.
With explaining. But we thought while we're talking about pedigreed dogs, we thought it would be a good opportunity just to remind listeners of some important do's and don'ts involved if you are going to be buying a puppy. Now, obviously, as we always do, a reminder that there are so many dogs out there in shelters needing adoption and needing homes. So please consider those first. Having said that, I also recognize there are reasons why somebody might want a particular pedigreed dog. Maybe you're planning to breed yourself, maybe you're wanting to show them, and that's part of the appeal of getting a registered puppy. So if that is the route you're going to go, you need to be seriously careful, because Wendy, this wasn't a scam, but sadly there are scams out there, and CUSA's website actually had quite a lot of information about that.
And I've covered many of these for more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
So your worst scam is that the puppies don't exist at all. They just advertise by people with a fancy site, and they're very easy to identify. The language is too schmaltzy and unprofessional. They talk about the little babies, fur babies, and that's not. And so that's a lot of people still get caught by that. They pay money for them to be flown to them, and then they get told from an official at the airport, at the courier company, oh no, we can't send it, we need an extra special crate, and then you pay for the special, and so
We've covered those stories before.
We've covered them. So that's your worst case scenario. But CUSA says that you want to really avoid that, obviously, but also putting your money into the hands of unscrupulous breeders and puppy mills who overbreed dogs, start them off too young, and usually keep them in appalling conditions, purely to make as much money out of them as they can before they are worn out and usually abandoned. And they also recognize, as we've just said, that they are the scam artists who advertise dogs that are purely fictitious with photos that they've just found on the net. And that's another thing that the reverse image search will reveal. Before I realized it was so easy to do it on my iPhone, I used to do that when I was covering one of these cases, and the puppies were, on some American site or something. They just, because they don't exist, the scammers have to steal photos. Okay,
yeah.
So here's some tips for doing your homework. Know the going price for that breed, because the puppy mills usually undercut, and you think you're getting a good deal, but it's an indication that you're not dealing with a reputable breeder who's doing all the right things.
Yeah.
This was an important one. Be very wary of breeders that have a wide variety of puppies available all year round. Responsible breeders only breed when they are certain they will be able to find good homes for all their puppies, and thus it may be necessary to place your name on a waiting list and or to pay a deposit. Beware of those that have puppies available all year round and offer discounts, because the reputable ones have waiting lists and that have no need to do that.
Yes, and they will wait in between letters to let the dog recover properly. And so important one that.
So also they've welcome people contacting their office, CUSA's office, based in Cape Town, to verify any claims made around CUSA membership or registration. All the scammers do that, but yeah. So that's
because
the
you
first
can call
thing.
them to say, okay, I'm thinking of buying a puppy from breeder X in Braamfontein. Yeah. Are they registered on your site? Does this dam and sire exist? Etc. Okay.
So that's great to know.
Although, they can't do anything though when if somebody's operating illegally, can they?
No, they've got no legislative powers to adjudicate. So there's a warning there. What they want you to do is protect yourself with information before you make that choice and pay your money. So they're very willing and able to help. To help.
They can't do anything
in
afterwards.
that regard.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this will rule out anybody that wants to have a pup, and I suppose it would apply to our two gentleman who bought that breed we spoke about earlier, is don't get them flown in. And I mean, a lot of people, if it's a specific breed and you've only got one breeder in the country or two that aren't in your province, I suppose you have them flown in, but they don't. Kusa advises insisting on visiting the premises where the puppy was raised. Never accept to collect your puppy from a different location. If it is flying, try and get a friend or family member to inspect the breeder prior to transporting the puppy. Be careful not to inadvertently support puppy farmers.
Absolutely. And I mean, that tells you so much, about the quality of the breeding experience, Wendy. If you can go in, they'll let you visit the kennel.
Happy
You
for
can
you to
see where the dogs are.
Yes.
You can see their beds where they're sleeping. You can see the food that they're being fed and all of that. It's so, so important. The interesting thing for me about Kusa's advice is if you come across a breeder
I also found this interesting.
that doesn't make you feel comfortable, or if you go and visit and you think, gosh, this is really dodgy, I don't think this is a bona fide
Situation.
setup.
Yeah.
A lot of people's response would be, I'm going to buy the puppy and get them out of this horrible
Rescue it.
situation and rescue it. Wendy Kusa actually advises against that, don't they?
Absolutely. They say don't rescue the puppy by paying for the puppy because it will only serve to perpetuate the vicious cycle. Rather contact them or your local SPCA and let them handle it.
Okay, so leave the dog behind and call straight away.
I know it's
to the SPCA.
hard.
It's very, very, very
but
tough.
That's
yeah.
the bigger picture is you're not helping by doing that. All responsible breeders will ensure that their puppies have been inoculated and dewormed by a registered veterinary professional. And Kusa registered dogs must be microchipped. This is absolutely mandatory.
Okay.
As a puppy buyer, you should receive a vet booklet with the puppy's medical history from the breeder. As we said earlier, ask to see the Kusa certificate of registration for the dam and the sire, and the Kusa membership number for the breeder. Beware of breeders that offer registration with alternate or multiple registries. The Kennel Union of South Africa is the only registry in this country that is recognized by the American, Canadian, United Kingdom, blah, blah.
Okay. Again, for those asking for the detail on there, the list of questions to ask your breeder, KUSA, kusa.co.za. And if you are buying a pedigreed puppy with the intention of showing them or breeding from them, you're going to need to familiarize yourself with Kusa. So get onto that website and do take a look. Lots of very good practical advice there. Okay, before we leave the animals behind, Wendy, you had an insurance query with a bit of a difference earlier this month.
It was actually a tweet which was widely shared, and it was Noelle Adams a couple of weeks ago. And it prompted me to investigate whether or not South African home contents insurance policies cover claims of damage caused by our beloved pets. And her tweet went like this: update on the expensive PC monitor that one of my cats sprayed on. Turns out our household insurance doesn't cover damage caused by household pets. And the sort of very sad
emoji.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
expensive mistake.
Yeah. So the question is, will your home contents and motor insurance, because remember, pets do horrible things to cars as well, some of them, will it pay out on a claim should your dog destroy your sofa when you're out for the night because of fireworks terror, or thunder or whatever else, or if your puppy chewed up a section of your car's bumper? I actually had a colleague of mine had something between the two. He left. I don't know how it happened. He must have. It wasn't his dog. Anyway, it was the dog in a car with fireworks and just tore up the entire interior. I even remember it was a Mazda 6. It was a long time ago.
Shame.
So the short answer is mostly no. In some cases, yes. If you have specified cover on a particular item and paid extra for it, but even then, there are some things that they won't cover. Some exclusions.
Tell us
so,
more.
All right. So I did a whiz around. Most policies have a clause stating something along the lines that the policy covers, quote, loss of or damage caused by animals, and then in brackets, excluding domestic animals. So if a lion bites off your side mirror when you're driving through a game reserve, you're covered. But if your own little kitty cat at home runs her claws down the side of your car, you aren't.
You aren't covered.
No.
Interesting.
So I spoke to the CEO for the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance, Edith Tezera McKinnon, and she said this exclusion is widespread in the insurance industry and is not considered a special exclusion which an insurer needs specifically to bring to an insured's attention at this point of sale. What she's saying is And I think a lot of the complaints coming to that office have said, but you didn't tell me you weren't going to cover that. So they don't have to specifically point it out to you. Another good reason to read your policy. She says there are risks which insurers generally have no appetite to insure, and this is one such risk. Senior Assistant Ombudsman for the short-term Ombudsman for short-term insurance, Peter Nkuna, says pet owners are generally considered to be responsible for their pets, including damage caused by them. By keeping the pet, you are taken to be voluntarily assuming the risk or submitting yourself to the damage likely to result from keeping them. Insurers choose what risks are acceptable and underwritten by them. An insurer cannot be compelled to insure any particular risk.
So if you leave your dog in the room where your computer is and your dog damages the computer, I guess, Wendy, they'd argue that is a foreseeable event.
That's the exact term. You should have foreseen that risk.
You should have realised that was a possibility that it could happen.
Exactly.
And removed the computer or the dog.
My favourite response was from Ernest North, who's co-founder of Naked Insurance.
We've had him on the show several times, yes.
Yeah. So he says, and explains it rather very well, he said there are two aspects: external forces versus accidental damage. External forces include weather-related events such as theft and fire and wild animals you can't control, such as baboons, and those are covered by insurance. Accidental damage refers to damage that was caused by you or anyone living under your roof or visiting as a result of an accidental and unintentional mishap, such as a fall or a slip. Every insurance contract is different in terms of cover for accidental damage, however. It's not usually included, this damage by pets, in contents cover, but something that you add or specify as an optional extra. So most insurance policies will not cover domestic animals, damage caused by them, but and reasonable care, the insurance contract requires you to look after and care for your valuables as well as take reasonable steps to avoid loss. So if you create a dangerous scenario, such as locking your dog in a room with an expensive sound system, that's considered to be not taking reasonable care.
Okay.
And he says Naked's policy is we only cover accidental damage on contents or items that have been individually specified, such as laptops, cell phones, etc. This would include paintings, sculptures, etc. He said, and this is interesting because I've had cases like this: gradual deterioration, lack of maintenance, and wear and tear. Insurance doesn't cover for those sorts of things. It also means pets, vermin, or insects gradually chewing your cables or furniture over time is not covered. And I had a case where a chap's Porsche, rats in the garage. He was mortified because he prided himself on, complete
keeping
cleanliness
his car
and
in pristine condition.
Perfect garage. It was one of the, a weekend car, not an everyday car, and so the rats, while he wasn't driving it, had a field day, and you can imagine, placed all that wiring, and actually it turned out to be a kudo, because the insurance company, I think because he was a good client, actually did pay for it.
They did pay
in the end, but most wouldn't.
So okay, so from the start of the policies you've told us about that's unusual.
So you should keep. You should have rat. What do you call it? I don't want to mention a brand name, but products that
rat repellent.
Yes, in your garage if you're worried about that. I asked all of them what kind of animal-related claims they had. Naked was the best response. Big dogs knocking over items like a TV, we would only cover if the item was specified. Dogs chewing on electronics, which are covered if they are specified, and assuming you didn't do it on purpose and took reasonable care. Dogs chewing furniture, not covered. Cats and dogs scratching cars, not covered. His personal advice was, I have about as much control over my 9-year-old son as I have over his small dog. I know my insurance covers my cell phone and my laptop when either of those two runs in the house and knocks them over, but if they chew my couch or knock over my red wine on an expensive carpet, I'm not covered. I thought about specifying those items, but it would increase the premium too much. As such, I'd rather just try to keep both away from that carpet, and anyway,
away from red wine.
From red wine.
Great response, Ernest.
Yeah.
Okay, so quite similar feedback from all of the insurers you spoke to.
You have to specify the items, but there are exclusions that apply anyway. They don't cover damage to automatic swimming pool cleaning equipment, also known as creepy crawlies and similar, cracking or scratching of glassware or any similar breakable item. and loss or damage of any portable computer equipment or cellular devices. Interesting.
Okay, so have the conversation if you have
That's
got
the
a
moral.
large or jumpy dog that is likely to damage things like that and you think it's a risk, you need to specify
But I mean-
individual items to be covered, Wendy.
And yes, and so
Yeah.
if I forget her name,
Was it
with
Noelle?
the spraying cat,
Yes.
yes, if she'd sounds like, depends on her insurer, but it sounds like if she'd specifically mentioned that it could be a desktop that's not portable, and maybe she doesn't have it on her out and about, whatever.
Yeah.
If she'd specified.
Cover for accidental damage and paid extra
Yes.
for it.
I
would
had
then
it
have
on a
been covered.
TV once, and my son, in the days of Wii games,
Yes.
he was
WII.
violently playing some sort of tennis or something, and the strap broke, and the controller
remote?
whizzed into the TV and broke it.
Oh my gosh.
Took him a little while to tell us, but that was covered
That was
because
good,
the
'cause
TV was
the
specified.
TV had been specified
Yeah.
on the policy and
Yeah.
it was obviously accidental damage. My goodness. Never saw that one coming, Wendy. Thank you.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson.
On CapeTalk.